back to another weekly reading vlog. It is currently Monday at 6:21 p.m. It is June 6th, and it is the beginning of my last week of work, kind of. I have a teacher work day Monday, but it's the last week with kids. Getting kids to pass has gone relatively well. I'm proud of the work they've done, and so we got to watch some movies today. I watched like half of Mulan and like didn't really watch Guardians of the Galaxy, but my kids watched half of the Guardians of the Galaxy. And my final class watched half of Pirates of the Caribbean, and I did watch a little bit of that, but it's what they chose, so yeah, I've mostly been grading though, so that's what I've been doing. But I wanted to update you on what I finished. So I finished Legends and Lattes on Sunday morning, and you've seen some clips of that day, some B-roll before this clip, and that was great. I loved Legends and Lattes, one of my favorite books I've read this year, probably like top 3, probably along with A Psalm for the Wild Built too, honestly. I just loved it so much, and it isn't even necessarily that it's like the best book ever written. It was just such a great reading experience. It made me feel so good. So reading experiences are subjective, and it was exactly what I wanted and needed at the time. Then I started Age of Myth by Michael J. Sullivan on audio, and I have already gotten to page 126, so I'm already pretty far into it. I'm already really intrigued and liking it. I'm already pretty intrigued. There's not a ton that's happened. I already like the characters. I already like Suri and Persephone quite a bit, and I like Wraith, so I already like the characters. I'm not like in love with them, and this is mostly been like, I don't know, I don't quite know what the plot is yet. I can tell the whole plot's gonna be this war between humans and gods, and it's basically like the history of Rhaeria, the Elan that we hear about in Rhaeria, but we don't actually hear about because all the history they believe is actually wrong. So this is like what actually happened. Michael J. Sullivan's been lying to us, and here he's going to set the record straight with us. And so Persephone's a character who I know a little bit about from the Rhaeria revelations, and it's interesting to see where she is now, like, because the things I've heard about her, I assume are going to come later in the series. This is kind of who she is before all of that. I have some theories, though. We've also met this character named Wraith, and I have some theories about him, but I don't know much else. And then we've met some of the gods, and from reading Rhaeria, I think I know a little bit about them, but really not a lot. And then also Suri is completely new to me, so, but I adore her. She's very cute. The world feels a lot less like Elan from Rhaeria Revelations. Like, they almost don't even feel like the same world. It'll be interesting to see if they ever really do, but I think it makes sense because, like, it is very realistic for completely different eras. Like, this is in ancient times rather than like the Rhaeria, which is thousands of years later. So I mean, they're gonna feel like completely different worlds because they're entire worlds apart. I'm excited to see if there's any similarities or how this world developed into the other world. And I'm just interested in the story so far. There's a lot more like wild places and wild things in this story, and I think that that's gonna be the vibe. This is very like much like sword and sorcery fantasy, whereas like Rhaeria is more like swashbuckling. Like, it is a lot more urban areas, and it takes place in a lot more urban areas, and it's a lot more dealing with like complex sort of political dynamics, whereas this one is definitely more, we've got clans, we've got chieftains, and we've got the gods, and there's going to be a war with the gods. It definitely feels much older, and then there's not a lot of build up around cities or anything, and so there is more magic, open magic, and so I think it'll be interesting to see the magic and the lore of this world more, and to see how we end up with people not knowing about a lot of magic, or people not knowing about a lot of lore, and people not really feeling the same way about nature and spirits and everything. And so I think that'll be very interesting. Already this feels very much like Sword and Sorcery. Like, we've got hints of like Norse stuff, we've got hints of like, I don't know, just like European-esque, British-esque mythology type things. And so very much Sword and Sorcery fantasy. It's very white from what I can tell, which is, you know, an issue, but I don't know, this very much does feel like a beginning, and I have heard this about this book, that this is very much a beginning to this conflict, and I mean, it's going to span 6 books, so it'll be interesting to see how we start off here, and see how my estimation of the series presumably grows as we get thicker into the conflict. So this is a really good start so far, and I will update you more on this later. I will update you more when I have updates on Royal Assassin. I was not able to read yesterday because I was editing and just doing all sorts of things, finishing books. I got caught up reading Age of Myth. Just, the time got away from me. So I'm gonna be reading Royal Assassin today, and hopefully starting Amir Mended by Alix E. Harrow. I'm still waiting on the audiobook of The Drowned Wood, and I was gonna wait on the audiobook for Amir Mended, but honestly, I think I'm just gonna read that one physically, because I can finish it tonight, and I kind of want to finish it tonight because I pre-ordered For the Throne by Hannah Whitten, and that's supposed to be tomorrow, so I will show an unboxing of that if it comes, and I get to unbox it. But yeah, For the Throne is supposed to come tomorrow, so I'm just gonna read Amir Mended, like, right now. and get it done. That sounds like it's a chore. It's not. I loved A Spindle Splintered, which is Amir Mended is the sequel to A Spindle Splintered. So I'm just excited to get that, the second half of that story, or the continuation of that story, I guess. But that's really all the updates I have for you now. I'm going to go either edit a video or read. Haven't decided yet. Hello, I'm giving you an update from my place of work. Sometimes I just have to get out of my classroom because it is so cold in there, and so I need to like come outside and unthaw. Yeah, and I think I'm clear, there's no students around me, so I'm good to talk to you. So it is Wednesday, I am halfway through my last work week, and I've read some things. So last time we talked, I had started Age of Myth, and that was it. So I finished 2 things, I think, is where we are. So I finished, first of all, Royal Assassin. So Royal Assassin, I finished it, I gave it 4.5 stars. The ending was a lot, like a lot happened. I didn't expect it to go in the directions that it did, and I'm really unclear where the series is going, because for some reason I just expected the whole, I don't know why I didn't, but I just expected the sort of court intrigue of books 1 and 2 to sort of stay for a while, but I don't know that they are. Not sure if I'm gonna love that, because I'm not sure that some of the characters I really loved, like Stricken, are gonna be in book 3. But Royal Assassin was really good. Do I think it is like the best book I've ever read, and like so many people say? No. It's definitely not. It's like a 4.5 star, and I have some mixed feelings about it. You know, the pacing is not quite what I wanted, and the ending was very weird, very interesting. But either way, I still really liked it. I had to stop real quick because the teacher walked out and I looked like a freak. Anyways, so Royal Assassin, not exactly how I wanted it to end, but, you know, still a good book. I'm still excited for the rest of the series and to get more into the realm of the Elderlings. And I do think I liked it better than book 1 because I was more invested. I bought into it more, so I gave it a 4.5 stars. Then, something I didn't like more than book 1 is Amir Mended. So I had an arc of Amir Mended, and I read that last night. And I finished it because it's only like 120 pages, like in like a paperback or like a hardback, but I have the arc, so it was not a bit longer, but it had more pages. It just did not have the same profoundness of the first one, in my opinion. And I've heard that kind of all over from people who have arcs, and I kind of agree. Like, I feel like, I don't know that this sequel was even needed. Like, I see why, like, Alix E. Harrow wanted to do one, but I also just don't know that the things that happened in it were really, like, necessary. So there was a couple of things I just like gave this like a 3-star because I was just like so not here for it, but I wasn't like hating it. I was just like, compared to the other one, this is disappointing. Like, not much is happening here that is worthwhile or good. And I think the issues partially with it are students just walked by, so if the angles changed, that's why. So yeah, Amir Mended just did not have it. It just did not have the like it factor that a Spindle Splintered I thought first thing, Xenia was very sympathetic in a Spindle Splintered, and I didn't dislike her in Amir Mended. There's people everywhere. So it's not that I disliked Xenia in Amir Mended, I just didn't think she had much that was interesting going on. I think she had an interesting relationship with like her life and future and things as she did in the first one, but I don't know that I needed like a whole book to explore it, just because there wasn't a lot else going on that was interesting. I mean, the characters that were really interesting about book 1 was not only Xenia but also Prim and Charm, and Prim and Charm aren't really in this book, and was like this stupid fight that kind of tore Charm and Xenia apart a bit, and I just was not like buying that or interested in that at all, and I don't know. So that was one thing. And then the new character that we're introduced to is like the evil queen, because this is now this story kind of tries to blend Snow White and Sleeping Beauty a bit, and the evil queen is supposed to have like a romance with our main character. And so first of all, I don't think they have any chemistry, like none whatsoever. I don't think I had to stop again because people, but pretty much, so Amir Mended's supposed to be like a Snow White and Sleeping Beauty blended sort of retelling, and so our Sleeping Beauty character meets the Snow White character, and they're supposed to, or not Snow White, the evil queen character, and they're supposed to be like a romance, and once again it's playing with like roles and fate and all types of stuff. And just thinking of the romance, I don't think they have chemistry at all, first of all. Like, they were not written with any chemistry in my opinion, and by the end of this like tiny novella, this like one day they've had together, I'm supposed to think they could possibly be soulmates and I'm supposed to feel like they have feelings for each other, and they have like, I don't know, it was just weird. It was not good. Then the evil queen herself is just not very compelling in my opinion, and so it didn't make sense to me why Xenia was so immediately fascinated with her. And then the queen, like, she's just very like boring, very like not a lot of depth to me, and just like not a lot of interest or intrigue like keeping me going with her, so I just didn't care about her at all. And I really think you need to for this story, since it is like her story and we're supposed to be invested in her getting out of her story and getting into another one. The next thing that was my issue is so just everything going on with Xenia's sexuality is very weird to me, because I'm pretty sure in the first one she said she was like 90% straight or something, but maybe thinks girls are pretty or something. And so like, here's my thing. Liking mostly guys and being attracted to mostly guys is a perfectly valid way to be bisexual. And it is perfectly valid that perhaps Xenia felt that way in A Spindle Splintered, and then in Amir Mended had more embraced her bisexuality a little bit. That's very possible, because there's a 5-year time jump between the two. But I just feel like the character I knew of Xenia, like the sexuality thing just wasn't explained enough for me. Like, I didn't know what changed for her to suddenly be like super into girls and this queen. Like, to me it didn't seem like, I don't know, that she was queer in the first one. It seemed like maybe she was questioning or just maybe curious, but then this one she's like fully bisexual, like very fully queer, and I just would have liked to have had an acknowledgement that something changed, or she had like an awakening or something, because she did not like read as a queer character in the first one. And I don't think that's me being biphobic or anything. I'm bisexual, calm down, or anything like that. I just literally think that that's what the book told me. The queerness of A Spindle Splintered is not in its main character, it is in the side couple. But I guess now it is, you know, now it's a queer book because our main character is queer, but I don't know that she was at that time or knew she was at that time, which valid. It's just that I would have liked some acknowledgement of that this changed, so I wasn't so confused and taken aback, because as long as I was still thinking of her as a spindle splintered Xenia, who's like maybe a little bi-curious, it was very weird to have her by the end thinking of this woman as possibly her soulmate, Other things I didn't like. The plot was very meandering and like one thing after another. It didn't seem to, correct me if I'm wrong, but this didn't seem to have the really strong folklore fairy tale backing that a Spindle Splintered did. Like there was things I'd never heard of that came up in a Spindle Splintered. There was really a lot of attention put on the versions of Sleeping Beauty and the research that our author and main character had done, and so that was really good. Part of the premise of this is basically like the fairy tale portals are not the portal fantasy, like the portals are not closed anymore, like things are leaking through different worlds and things, and we end up in another Snow White story that's very different from the original, and that was interesting. But I was just like, what is this story? Like what is this? Is this like Alix Harrow's made up story? Like what is it? I don't know. I was just confused about the plot. It was very meandering, very jumpy, like it was not good. And then probably the biggest thing though is thematically, I don't know what this story was trying to say or do. A Spindle Splintered was very much a tight thematic portrayal of a chronically ill woman, and it talked about the lack of power women have, and lack of agency, and it talked about the intersection of that with disability, and all of that tied into fairy tales, and it was beautiful. It did exactly what it needed to do. And Amir Mended, I don't know what it was trying to do anymore. It was trying to, in a way, further both of those, and I think that the portrayal of chronic disability still rang true with Xenia. Like, I don't think that was bad, and I don't think that it's necessarily wrong that the things it was saying about women. So it was saying there was a lot about how the evil queen is sort of like cast into a role, and how agency is like what a lot of women want, even if they do something bad with it, and like that's fine. But that was just such a basic theme to me, whereas a Spindle Splintered seemed to be like I wanted something different than a Spindle Splintered theme. Like a Spindle Splintered covered that. Like I want something different. I want something that pushes this series thematically, because the themes were so important in book one. But there was nothing that pushed it thematically. There was nothing that was new or interesting about the themes of this. And on that note, I just don't know what the book was trying to do with its message either, about what our main character Xenia needed to do. Like, it just seemed like there was conflicting messages, and part of this is a world building issue as well. So this with the world and the multiverse, like they weren't clearly very fleshed out. Like clearly, like I feel like that worked for a Spindle Splintered, but then you try to create more conflicts in the world, and then suddenly things don't make sense. And that's kind of what happened with Amir Mended. Like, we're trying to do soft magic fairy tale explanations for a hard magic multiverse system, and I was like, this doesn't make any sense. Can you change your destiny? Can you find a new destiny for yourself, like a Spindle Splintered seemed to do? Or is there consequences for that? Is there ever really a destiny other than the one that you are intended to have? But also, can't you just write a new one? Like, this book didn't seem to know. Like, and why in arbitrary ways could one thing happen but not another? Like, it was just so stupid to me how, like, I can't get into it without being like super spoilery about the end, but there was like multiple options for how the ending could have gone, and one would have been very similar to the ending of the first one, and I was like, but it was like, no, that can't happen. Why? Because it happened once, and then so why sometimes can it happen, and why is sometimes that the destiny is that and sometimes it's not? And then some of it's like, okay, well then how it actually ended also was like, okay, well it's still the same problem. I'm not making any sense. But basically, with what this book was trying to say, it was very much like you can't run from destiny, and trying to balance that with agency, but those things don't balance very well. Like, you can't have those two things. And so as a result, the themes and the ideas and the ending and the world made no sense, because it was hinging on both of those things being true, and the way it was done, they just weren't true. It was contradictory. And it's just like, also there was like little contradictions, like our main character says to someone who, like, you don't know what it's like to feel like you're trapped in a story someone else wrote for you, to the character she saves in the last book. Like, the whole point is she does know that. She doesn't know that feeling. She was trapped in her own story and you saved her from it. So who are you trying to speak to? Like, there were just things like that. Was like, it was just like, Alix, did you reread the first one before you wrote this? Like, you should have made something more thematically coherent, because it's a series, you know? I don't know. I truly feel like there was potential for this, especially because I think that the Snow White and Sleeping Beauty stories are so interesting to think about, because they have such similarities. Like, they have like a sleeping princess and a kiss that wakes her up. Like, they have similar tropes. And so thinking about that and then having like a sapphic spin on it would have been so cool. But the two stories I've read that have done that have not been sufficient for like a sapphic romance. Like, the other one, The Sleeper and the Spindle, is a perfectly sufficient book, but whoever called that story sapphic didn't know what they were talking about. Second of all, this book is definitely sapphic. It's just, in my opinion, not very good. So that's my updates. That's the things I've finished. Today I haven't read too much more of Age of Myth. I'm about 37% through, but I haven't read much in a couple days. I'm hopefully going to read some more. And then I also brought For the Throne out with me to read in the sun. So I think I'm going to do a little bit of that before I go in and eat ice cream. Cool. So I will see you next update.